when Leia captained a Star Destroyer. Though often seen together, Princess Leia and Han Solo made for a far from effective team. Both incredibly strong-willed, their opposing views would often lead to heated argument. But when Leia behind the reins of a massive Star Destroyer, those differences had to be put aside, quick. This is the story of Leia's time as a captain of a captured Star Destroyer. After a deadly space battle, the rebels managed to commandeer an enemy Star Destroyer and escape away from the bloodshed. Somewhere in the outer reaches of the Outer Rim, the rebels were barreling through space, in an attempt to get to the rebel planet of Turin 7 safely. Of course, it was no easy task for Leia to become the captain of this ragtag team on the oversized capital ship. Solo, the charming yet stubborn smuggler, felt that he naturally would slip into the role, having led his own life by his own rules so far and gotten by adequately enough. He was so confident that he insisted that he and Leia, who herself believed just as stubbornly that she deserved the title of captain, settle the disagreement the old-fashioned way. Racing across the ship's hull, of course. Leia, always on the quicker foot, took her chances, and landed a blisteringly swift kick at Han's shin, getting a much-needed head start. Han, enraged, took chase immediately, blasting past his allies and colleagues who were standing in the hallway. Leia was gaining distance between them. Now having managed to sprint her way to the ship's hangar, she shouted her way through the rebels who were settling into the new ship. Now, with so much distance that Han was no longer visible behind, Leia started to feel a sense of proud victory, until a speeder bike came crashing past, knocking her to the ground. It seemed Han had taken a leaf out of Leia's book, and bent the rules slightly into his favor. Ever resourceful though, the princess decided to take the race to a whole new level. Outer space. As Han dashed the speeder bike through the tight corridors of the destroyer, the now faster, determined, and self-assured Leia blasted past a side window of the ship in a spacesuit, complete with jetpack and comms system. Sometimes it paid to bend the rules just a little, especially as Han was oblivious to the fact that his mode of transportation had now become the second fastest in the race. As he confidently swaggered on the bridge, the smuggler was in for an unwelcome surprise. "Don't worry, the captain's got it under control," quipped Leia from the stern. However, all witticisms and lightheartedness between Han and the new captain were suddenly dropped. Leia had discovered some worrying news thanks to Sana, who was patrolling in a TIE fighter alongside Luke just outside the ship. They had found an empty rebel craft headed right for them. Not a single crewmate was left alive on board, and the rebel admiral in charge of the vessel had been tied to the bow of the ship, a frozen, deadly message for Leia and her crew. While Leia and her allies were trying to get to the bottom of it, below deck an elite force of enemy fighters were making their way onto the ship. The Empire had come to take it from the rebels and strip Leia of her newly found ownership. But more on that later. Leia was efficiently delegating roles for her rebel allies and friends to get out of any larger, more obvious trouble. Despite being in control, there was still a lot wrong with the ship. Now leading the operation, Leia was faced with a broken hyperdrive and an overloaded reactor, depleting shields, and inexplicably offline cannons. Without breaking a sweat, she made sure that the maintenance team, a droid and a Wookiee in the form of C-3PO and Chewbacca, were handling getting the power back to the engines. If they couldn't move, they couldn't start to think of solving their own problems. But Han's insistence of his own opinion began to stubbornly rise. If it were up to him, they would stop the ship as soon as possible, work on repairs, and quit while they're ahead. Han was not getting his way, and Leia's plan to power through to Turin 7 and avoid any surprise attacks had to be accepted by him. However, Solo's protestations also carried a surprising amount of conviction. After deeming her decision as crazy, the princess calmingly agreed and offered Solo a role he couldn't refuse. "I need the craziest pilot in the galaxy at the helm," Leia quipped. Han quickly realized he would be useful on the bridge after all. He was to be the helmsman, a decidedly deadlier and, in Han's eyes, more fun job than captain. "All right, people, let's see what this thing can do." Leia's role within the rebellion was often limited to either being a grand strategist for large battles or a member of a small strike force. She was never really known for her ability to fly craft or direct crew aboard one. Her time as captain of the stolen Star Destroyer, the Harbinger, was one of the rare times we got to see her in this position, and it showed how Leia's great skills as commander could easily fit into any role.